Recyclical, making lithium-ion last forever. Recyclico's patented recycling process achieves up to 100% recovery of battery metals from lithium-ion batteries for electric vehicles, including cobalt, lithium, nickel, manganese, and aluminum. Recyclico Battery Materials Incorporated trades on the TSX Venture AMY, on the OTCQB AMYZF, and Frankfurt ID4. For more information, visit recyclicode.com or phone us at 778-574-4444. Recyclico, making lithium-ion last forever.
You're listening to HowStreet.com radio, available online at TalkDigitalNetwork.com. Welcome to HowStreet.com radio, the online source for market opinions. Here is Jim Goddard.
My guest is Rick Ackerman, editor of the newsletter Rick's Picks, his website rickackerman.com. He's speaking to us from Florida. Welcome back to the show.
Thanks, Jim. Thanks for inviting me on. It is always a pleasure.
As we speak, the stock markets are down a bit, but you don't follow it just day to day. You look at the trends. What's the overall trend?
Well, we've been in a bull market since 2009, so I'd say looking back over 15 years, the trend has been up. But if you go back hundreds of years, you'd find the same thing. It's mostly up, and we're privileged in this age to see that the reason for it being up can be insanity. So that's what we've got.
Yeah, some of the reasons ascribed to it continuing to go up right now is earnings were good, and so why not throw more money into the stock market? Is that a good plan?
Yeah, that kills me. I'm fortunate to have my own gig. Nobody can fire me, and if someone writes a letter to to complain, I can just snuff it. But if you work for a newspaper and they pay you to write about the stock market, when the market goes up, you have to say why. And of course, they do, and they make idiots of themselves because there isn't a why for this market. It's not earnings. This market doesn't really care about earnings. It doesn't care about the election cycle. It doesn't care about earnings multiples. It doesn't care whether there's the threat of an outbreak of nuclear war. Nothing affects this market because it's simply in an up cycle. It's one of those broad cycles of human behavior, and behaviorally, we're all behaving pretty badly, or at least investors are.
Yeah, for me, it's kind of like the way the climate is changing. There's no doubt it's getting hotter, it's getting drier for a lot of the planet, but that's what it does. But of course, humans like to put a cause on it. So we caused it this time. In the 1500s, they thought the earth was getting cooler because of witches, and they burned tens of thousands of women to death, blaming them for colder weather. We always want a cause for everything. Sometimes that's just the way things are. They get hotter, then they get colder. Same thing with stock markets.
Yeah, we had a name for climate change when I was growing up. We called it weather. And, I still subscribe to what Betty Boop said. Weather is hot, weather is cold, but we must have weather or not. Boop, boop, be doop.
Yeah. Well, yes, the trend is hotter and warmer, but we should make plans to deal with it, to think that we can control weather. I guess it's just like turning lead into gold was a dream. And if you do enough chemistry and manipulation of molecules, you can probably do it. Costs more than gold, but you can do it. And right now, people are saying the trillions spent on trying to fight a natural phenomena has been a waste of money.
See, that's my problem. Even if you could convince me that global warming is man-made, assuming we're having warming, I would never trust giving tens of trillions of dollars to some agency in Brussels that's going to give us better weather. That's the part of it that doesn't work for me. And but my personal solution for climate change is I'm moving out of Florida. I've sold my home. I'm still living here. I'm going to close the sale in October. But I was just out in San Francisco where summer weather was my kind of ideal. You know, it never got much above 70 degrees, and I may go back there.
Yeah, and climate is mostly influenced by solar activity, changes in the Earth's orbit, volcanic activity. One volcanic eruption wipes out 10 years of carbon credits. And right now we have a lot of volcanoes that are very active.
Yeah, that's true. That's true. And if the Yellowstone caldera gets any more active, we won't have a climate change problem anymore.
Wasn't our last mass extinction caused by Yellowstone going super volcano?
Well, that one comes around, I think, every maybe 520,000 years or something like that.
Oh.
And we're overdue. But I don't figure you have to be so unlucky to be on this earth for your 60 or 70 or 80 or 90 years to be here when the caldera blows that, well, I guess if your number's up, your number's up.
Now, you said there are important bellwethers or bellwether for watching the market and its trends. What is it?
Yeah, there's no reason to get all exercise to watch, to tune to Bloomberg or somebody like that, where they've got 50 quote unquote experts just kind of all going in somewhat different directions. All you need to do is watch Microsoft. It's an infallible bellwether. You don't have to care about all those things, the election cycle and the threat of nuclear war and earnings and stuff like that. Just look at a chart of Microsoft currently trading 420. The stock is going to go to 449 before the fat lady sings, and that's just it. You really, I think you can tune out all the blather because that's as simple as I can make it. It's I'll say at least to 449 point. I think it was 0.13. I've got a chart up in front of me right now, but I think I've missed on one of the coordinates. But we're looking for very exact numbers here. And I've already had an indication on the chart that the remainder of the rally, the additional 30 points right now to the target, that's more or less in the bag. I judge that from how Microsoft acts at what I call the midpoint pivot of the pattern I'm using. That occurred at 417.32. The stock just kind of pumped its way through, and it's remained above it for the last couple of weeks. So I'm going to tell you there's about 106% chance that the stock will get to 449.13. And I can't tell you for certain that that's where it's all going to end. It will have a tradable pullback from that number. You can get short when it gets there. But whether it has one last gasp rally to take it to new highs or even something beyond the last gasp, it just keeps going. I always remain open to that possibility because I've seen this market do, if not the impossible, certainly the illogical for a lot of the last decade and a half. So yeah, it's no more complicated than watching Microsoft. Microsoft is the best company in the world from the standpoint of revenues. There's no company that's even remotely equal to it, simply because they put all Windows users, which means pretty much everyone on the planet that's not using a Mac, they put them all on a subscription basis. So everybody gets automatically updated to the next version of Windows, and that revenue just keeps flowing in enormous amounts to Microsoft's bottom line. So if we have a depression, Warren Buffett will still be collecting insurance premiums from Geico, and of course, Microsoft will have the subscription revenues from the operating system. So the stock is as close to bomb-proof as possible. They have a captive market that's every Windows user on Earth. So I consider it not just a bellwether because it's because it's a mega cap stock, but because it's going to be the last man standing.
We'll have more with Rick Ackerman right after this.
Don't miss out. Stay informed. Receive the HowStreet.com weekly recap with thought-provoking podcasts, radio, and articles delivered to your inbox. Sign up for the HowStreet.com weekly recap on our homepage at HowStreet.com.
Welcome back. We're speaking with Rick Ackerman. Rick, what's going on with crude?
Well, I had expected that the fist pump up into the low 80s and see everybody get short there, as they always do when it rallies, and I thought it would pop higher. And my reasoning was based on the logic that this is a very troubled world, and exceptionally so with respect to how oil is manufactured and distributed. You know, one of the reasons that we haven't seen a heavy retaliation by Iran after Israel knocked off a couple of its worst guys, is that Iran recognizes that it's very vulnerable, that an Israeli strike could take out their entire port facility. They could not send or receive things from any by sea, and they could also have their energy production, their natural gas outputs, they could be knocked out as well. So the Israelis could put Iran out of business in probably 6 hours. So that's why I don't think we've seen a counter move by Iran. So it's a dangerous world, and so much of those dangers could potentially impact on the supply of oil that I would have thought that this trip up into the low 80s was going to be the one that confounded the expectations of people who get short there, and just keep on going into the 90s up toward 100. But instead, oil's just fallen. You know, it made a recent top above 78 on the NYMEX contract, and it's recently traded down 71 and change. So we've had a pretty good sell-off, and I would say, you know, the risk on, risk off thing is not too complicated either. You get a pretty good read in the price of oil, and I would say this world is preternaturally relaxed. It's like you just look at oil, you'd think everybody is just kind of stifling a yawn as far as what could go wrong in this world.
Maybe there's the attitude, there's nothing we can do about it, so just stay calm and carry on, like the British slogan.
Well, I think it's more the old saying about if you can keep a cool head while everybody else is panicking, then you just don't understand the situation.
What's going on with gold?
It's a piece of crap, really. I mean, I love it. It's in a bull market. But, you know, they didn't have to knock it down $30, $40 today, but they did anyway. Why? Because they can. So we've still got gold getting hit occasionally. Mr. Slammy comes in because all the short covering is not done. All the players who are essentially short gold by way of paper that they've issued that pledges gold in redemption. So gold is it's in a bull market, but it's still very much being accumulated, and that's why you see it get knocked down the way it does. But the last knockdown, which was just a week ago, took it from 2,500 down to 2,440, and it could have, if it really wanted to fully correct, it could have come down another $50 or $60, but it didn't. So we're getting shallower corrections, and I think that gold has already given us a pretty good signal that you should be using 3,000 as an ambitious target right now. I think not that 2,500 has been completely handled, but I do think gold, just looking at some of the longer term charts, is saying we're ready for 3,000.
On the crypto front, what's going on?
Well, crypto is a big hoax, but even though I regard it as such, I forecast bullish when conditions warrant it. And I've had for some time, this was when it was trading below 50,000 within the last month, I have a 65,000 target on Bitcoin. Let me give you the exact number here, because I've been hitting them pretty closely. 65551 is the forecast that I've had out for some weeks. And we do see some wicked histrionics, but Bitcoin benefits from the fact that a lot of the institutional support comes from sources that have absolutely no skin in the game. They're basically sleazy banksters who are saying, look, we don't, crypto has enough respectability that we can say, yeah, it's okay. They can pretend they like it, and it doesn't cost them anything. You know, some of their clients are certainly deep in crypto, but I think it's on its way to 65K right now, 65,551. Currently trading 60,500.
Is uranium still a big player?
I haven't been a close follower of uranium. I think last time we talked about it, the most I could say was that the uranium story has been around for a while, almost as long as the coal story. But we're getting some interesting results in places in Europe. For one, I think it was it Iceland maybe? Anyway, we're getting into the small reactor phase where you can generate power locally without a megawatt super plants. You know, relatively small nuclear installations can provide a grid of local power, and also the recycling of spent fuel is getting better and better. So it's not a closed recycling system, but it certainly takes a lot of pressure off the storage part of the equation. You know, nobody wants a big pile of nuclear. It's not piled really. It's all stored underground, and they put it in canisters that are pretty well caulked up with concrete and lead and everything else. But I can't see. The uranium story remains a good one. So it's a really good long-term play, but there are always going to be political setbacks. But politically, more and more jurisdictions, nationalities, regions are finally coming around on nuclear power, in part because they can see the hazards of wind power. For one, you know, you've got a major war going on the east coast of the United States, where these wind companies want to put wind farms out in the ocean. And of course, we've got the NIMBYs fighting that up in Cape Cod. And a buddy of mine is very active in New Jersey. His name is Seth Grossman. He runs he's in a libertarian group there, and they have ardently opposed this one company for 100 good reasons. You know, you just read one of the newsletters that Seth sends out, and you'll be persuaded that we shouldn't really give way to wind power. It's a total boondoggle. And I think the way they're fighting it in Atlantic City, where he lives, is by way of opposing some sort of conduit for the power that's generated to an inland station. So, you know, the alternatives to nuclear are just not that good. And if you can get past the idea of radioactive half-life and its hazards, you find that nuclear is a lot less harmful to the environment than other sources, especially fossil fuel.
Do you think the U.S. federal government is going to legalize marijuana?
No. Mm-hmm. No, I mean, I'm thinking back to Lenny Bruce back in, this would have been about 1958, 59, he was saying at that time that all of his lawyer friends smoked dope and that they would become congressmen and eventually we'd have marijuana legalized. But of course, the federal government just hasn't rolled over yet, and I don't think they plan to. It's sort of the one step too far as a Capitol Hill consensus. So the states can regulate it in any way they choose, and based on the market that I'm most familiar with in Colorado, I lived in Boulder for 20 years. The regulators just kind of sit back and they don't, as long as the local rules do seem to keep some control over sale of marijuana, the regulators they're okay. They don't ride herd. But when the local jurisdiction seems not to be enforcing diligently enough, they'll come in and then they'll drag out a tape measure and see that they've got a marijuana depot within 200 yards of a school or something like that, and they'll shut it down. And of course, we still don't use the federally chartered banking system in the payment scheme for marijuana. It's a cash business wherever you go. And I don't see the federal government giving way there either.
Well, some people predicted mayhem and death and riots when they legalized marijuana in Canada. No difference whatsoever, except now if they buy pot, they don't get a criminal record.
True, yeah. I mean, there's no enforcement in the airports, and a lot of it gets around in that way. But one unsettled issue there, and it's not going to be settled, and that's going to argue against legalizing marijuana completely, and that's the driving under the influence thing, because it's difficult to measure. There aren't any. One test could say, well, if you're a little bit high on marijuana, it doesn't impair your driving much. But occasionally you get one of these 22-year-olds who rear ends a car that's sitting in a left turn lane at 106 miles an hour, and it gets people talking. There's some accidents that occur that are very obviously attributable to dope smoking drivers. So there's no way to scientifically settle that argument, and I think it will continue to weigh against the unlimited legalization.
Rick, anything else we should be keeping a close eye on?
Just Microsoft, Jim. And of course the elections, they're interesting. As much as said that they won't have any impact on the market. It's not like we're going to have a big rally anticipating a Trump victory. There just isn't any celebration coming in that way. But and of course this is just opinion, but I do think we're being gaslighted into thinking that Harris is a serious candidate. I do expect Trump to win, and he will be unfortunate in that his term would begin with probably the tail end of this boom cycle we've been in since 2009. So, but anybody who's worried about Harris winning this election, I think you can relax.
Rick, thank you so much for chatting with us.
Thank you, Jim. I really do appreciate your inviting me on. It's always fun to connect with your audience. And anyway, I look forward to our next conversation.
My guest has been Rick Ackerman, editor of the newsletter Rick's Picks, his website, rickackerman.com. If you have any questions for Rick or for any of our guests, you can send them to info@housestreet.com. Our YouTube channel is Talk Digital Network. Find us on X @HouseStreet. We're also on Facebook. I'm Jim Goddard. Thank you for listening.
Comments made on HouseStreet.com radio are an expression of opinion only and should not be construed in any matter whatsoever as recommendations to buy or sell any financial instrument at any time. Available online at talkdigitalnetwork.com. HowStreet.com Radio is a production of How Street Media Incorporated.